Right, we're looking for the nod from someone. Ready? It's time to go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, thanks everybody for attending. Item 1, apologies.
So only councillor Sol Quarter.
Right. Any declarations? Shouldn't I have said this has been filmed?
Next is that we have some sort of end more. I think on those pictures there, usually do it with
I did the last meeting, so I had a script, but there's no members of the public hearing.
we are people more live or so we get to
Okay, thank you. Okay, declarations of interest. Minutes of the meeting. Any points on the minutes of the meeting? Any errors spotted?
Yeah. So in the last time, it's not an error with the minutes. Talking about the trying yes. But I said I would go back to double check how long they last for. It's actually changed.
Okay.
Whether they would be released.
So the minutes will be amended to reflect that.
Oh, this is the home zone today.
Okay, thank you. So item 4, amendment to the constitution, budget setting process.
Yeah, I'll just take you through this report. We're gradually working through the constitution to make sure it's in line with the Welsh model constitution. It broadly is, but we're dealing with the most urgent bits first. So the budget setting process is the most urgent bit. We want to make sure it's right for this forthcoming financial year. I think last year really highlighted the fact that it wasn't quite in line with the model. In that there was no process for an alternative budget to be proposed prior to full council.
I'm sorry, this. I read about that in the papers, obviously, but I don't remember that being raised at the. Does anybody else remember that being raised at the time? So I was wondering where this came up from. If it wasn't something that you were.
Yes, well, we raised, we spoke to heads of finance and legal at the time.
Right, but didn't seem to disseminate any first.
So exactly that we were able to reach an agreement before it actually got to full council, but we don't want to find ourselves in a situation when we get to full council on the 9th and somebody raises an alternative budget without having discussed it with the head of finance and myself first and mainly because we have to balance budget and any kind of proposals that don't fit with the budget would cause significant delays.
I mean, if I remember, I don't want to drag this bit out, but if I remember correctly, it's almost traditional that we have somebody stands up and objects to the budget, which that administration, whichever administration it be, it's a tradition. I object to that because you've suggested this, and we all should be aware of the processes and procedures for that, and that this is something which is actually the process has started now, so it's far too late to bowl in at the last.
Exactly, that's the point, and so it highlighted that there wasn't any deadline in place for somebody to put forward an alternative budget,
right,
which would have time for it to be considered before the council meeting, because of course we're going to set the budget. We have statutory duty to set it by the 11th of March in each financial year, and actually in reality it needs to be a bit sooner than that so that the demands for council tax can go out for the new budget. So really by the 1st of March.
Yeah, I was just rather surprised that, because it is a tradition to challenge, that is the venue for making political challenges.
Yes, but if you want to put forward an alternative budget, then the amendment that's proposed, and this is in line with the model constitution, is that any alternative budget is put forward 5 days before.
Right, okay, so you just get it formalised. Perhaps as well, though, I'm sure that you have discussed this, so it's just like, that's right. But maybe member training to explain this process, because we've had so many new councillors at the last election.
We've got member training planned for December.
Yeah, so
Finance.
finalising
And
the
really,
dates
there's
on
no
it.
excuse for saying, well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's going to be clearly laid out in the constitution, should you agree that 5 days prior to full council, any alternative budget proposals are put forward to myself and the section 151 officer for us to consider to see if they form a balanced budget and then give obviously the executive leader and cabinet a chance to have a look at those. And with the idea that hopefully we can come forward with an agreed budget on the night of council. Should limit the.
Maybe what this should be emailed, but maybe forward to, this is the deadline.
I think we would do that.
Yes.
That's not the worst idea. And I do have a briefing note for members that explains the budget setting process that we would probably disseminate before that. So that covers off that one amendment. It's clear that our constitution already defines what the budget is, so it's always known to everybody, and that is in line with the Welsh model already, so that doesn't need to be changed. And then the other change that we propose to make we have some discretion locally, is that we separate the budget setting process from the policy framework slightly, so that the budget setting process is a bit more streamlined, because it's a slightly different process from the policy framework. So then it is separated within that section, just to give more clarity about the budget setting process and to avoid confusion, whether that merges with the policy framework setting process. So I think that kind of gives you a brief outline. So you're asked today to agree recommended changes over the annex to the report for you to see how it looks. You can not agree to the changes, or you can put forward proposals. But, and I can take any question, and if you have any questions.
Well, firstly, are there any questions?
I think it's not controversial, Chair, and it should just be passed through. The one thing about the training that Liz mentioned, it should be for group leaders really, for them to disseminate them, because the individual councillors are extremely unlikely to propose a budget all by themselves.
No, I agree with that. I think it's really important that all members are going to full council to vote on a budget. So it's really important that members, and that's good standard, good practice within local government, that all members have at least an understanding of your budget contains, how they can, because otherwise how can you vote again effectively if you don't understand?
Yeah, I've actually made a note to myself to bring this up at our next group meeting, at the council's group meeting,
Yeah.
so that people are aware of this.
And yeah, I mean, you could take away from it what you will, and it's not going to be a huge thing. Session, I think, just kind of giving you the basics rather than going into huge detail. But
We did 2 separate sessions last year to cover it in detail. I think this one we tended to more of a refresher, so one session.
Personally, I appreciate the amendments, but I think that they help clarify the situation. I know at the last meeting there was some confusion, and even in the run up to the meeting, council meeting, there were discussions about process, what we can about do. Do recall that there was a request for the budget to be sent back to the cabinet at that very late time. Yeah, so we need, if we can avoid these confusions, to understand what we can and can't do and what the timeline is, I suggest that the amendments are sound. Does anybody?
No, I would just comment, I think you're still going to get the challenges.
I've got the basis
Quite happy that you'll not likely to talk about
But the challenges are legitimate, and
Yes.
any opposition that you can expect to scrutinise and challenge the budget. So, do we need a proposer on this?
Propose.
Seconded,
A second.
and in support? Or that's online. Tim? What else do we have?
Americans, yeah.
Do you put it here?
yeah, lovely.
Lovely, Pat?
Okay, thank you, Chair. We'll take it forward to the council.
Thank you. Okay, item 5, Democratic Services Committee Annual Report 2023.
Chair. So members of the committee sat for a way that every year we bring to council an annual report that sets out the work of the Democratic Services Committee delivered through the year. So the Government of Wales in 2011 requires a committee to present our report to council. So this report proposes a content of that report and asks for members to comment and agree that our content is sufficient to council in order to meet that requirement. So the summarisation of the report is set out into fragments and the original agreement that they have to work and support the council. Also has some information on structure and membership. So it covers a period for the annual government meeting last year and subsequently to that. So there has been a change in chair and some committee members during that period. The committee met on 5 occasions during the 12 months that we're reporting on. Some of the key things that the committee considered during that time were the framework for ward meetings and the participation strategy. So there was some robust discussion, feedback, and the committee came up with the final proposal on ward meetings, whereby we agreed how many times they would meet a year, what officer support would be in place, and how support advertise those committees would take place.
The first round of board meetings has taken place. It's really good to see them established again.
That's good to hear.
Yes, and I have a more meeting tonight, so it really is good to see.
Yeah, yes, I'm very pleased that we've moved on the stage from recent history.
Well, COVID as well, I think that
That's a really positive act, and then part of the committee's work then that proposal was taken to the council and voted in, and so we kind of live in it now, so that's great. We also looked at sort of some pre-work in terms of the model constitution that Liz has been talking about today. I know Liz came and gave us an update on the Wales constitution will be set throughout the year and it will be considered and embedded when we are looking at those people today. We also looked at member training during the year, so the committee was key to the election curriculum before the local election in 2022, and subsequently started this year we came back and considered that update, what training had been provided, attendance, and also created some ideas for the next 12 months again in terms of the training. The committee also considered draft annual report, the independent remuneration panel. So as a draft report, that was for information only, but the committee also gave some responses to the consultation that were then submitted to Welsh Government before that report was finalised. The committee also made recommendations into the council's constitution in terms of the process of appointment to the regional committee public services board. Finally, the committee requested some updates on the implementation of voter ID and changes to absent votes for voting for the election of that 2022. And final part of the report is around the work plan for 2020 program. So a big part of this, as we talked about today, is the constitutional review. So the council arrangements in terms of financial planning, including budget setting and financial procedure rules, asset management and risk management are the priorities, but there are quite a few within the constitution as well. So detailed, a lot of information here. So I think that will be quite much time for the next year. The other key parts for the committee's key brief over on the participation strategy, so continuing to ensure that that's embedded as part of our work the day-to-day, and also perhaps go back to the ward meetings, having a view on those and just making sure that the support being provided is in line with that.
Can I just ask a question? I've been in place since May, and I think it caused some amusement when I did the report at council, and I challenged one of the decisions that the committee had made. which was the supplementary questions to the leader. We've had one meeting, I think, since then, and can we review and look again at some point the effectiveness of this change of policy? Because the idea of the getting rid of the supplementary question to the leader was to allow more questions to be asked.
In 3 months.
Exactly, but I think it was 3 months ago anyway. So I think we need to give it some time to see how it beds in, but it might be interesting to raise this topic again at some point next year.
Obviously, it's the chair's discretion not to put on the agenda subject to standing orders. But I was never quite sure how this question ever came to be posed.
I proposed the question.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, here and so full council was partly around the position as well, so we considered both of them. Those are both relevant to the one standing order.
So it was a direct referral from full council.
It was here and full council.
I do have a question about responsibilities for member training. Standards and democratic services seem to look at this issue, and which will take precedent, because I know that when I was on standards, there was some concern about a few councillors who wouldn't take part in the statutory training. So where does that responsibility now? Although it may feel it's gone to the leaders of the groups, but I want a clarification on that.
Yeah, I think the two committees is probably a slightly different viewpoint for each of them. So the standards point of view, they're making sure that members are receiving the training that they need in order to be able to meet those standards and meet that code of conduct responsibility. What they have a particular interest in is the mandatory training, which is the code of conduct training itself. So everything else really is an update to them with information only. In terms of democratic services, your role is to make sure that elected members have the resources available to them to enable them to do their jobs. So there are subtle differences, slight differences there. I think, yeah, you're right, absolutely right. In terms of attendance, that would be standards are interested in that, and as part of the legislation, like with the first quite updates on all standards related issues that are part of that is how they're encouraging their members to attend any training.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just thinking about the training, used to find it used to be at 4 o'clock. It's arranged about, some of us members we work full time, and so I don't finish work for a while, so it's really difficult for me to attend any training. So I'm used to dividing the training because I got work commitments which I can't get out of. So I personally was like later training available. I could attend those training courses.
Yeah, I think we did a little bit of that survey on training, and part of that was the time in mind want. I think we're going to rerun it because one of the questions we've got quite good. I think what we might have to look at is to the options. We know to be only, yeah, absolutely.
We do need to facilitate this, in the interest of attracting more prospective councillors from a wider demographic. We absolutely need to be able to facilitate these evening sessions as well that fit in with people with life commitments.
I think it's positive to note that there's certainly something since we've been doing it virtually, but again, I know from the small sample of responses to the survey and training. Again, there's a few people who would like it. The biggest challenge is trying to fit in all the training. So
I have a question. How do you measure the effectiveness of the training?
I think part of that would be the benefit that was them on what was useful, what wasn't so useful, which was again, perhaps actually introduce feedback on individual sessions. What I would be cautious of is some of the fatigue in that surveys. So those are two options. Like anything else that members would like to introduce and give feedback.
Is taking your point of view, the concept of e-learning means that you don't have to go to the training at a particular given point. So you can do the training at your leisure. You just need some proof that you've been on the training rather than just do a tick box. So is that something we could look at in terms of making it asynchronous, and so you do within a window of opportunities rather than have to be somewhere at 4 o'clock on a given day?
Yeah.
You can log in because they are recorded. Now, some of the value of the training, diversity was a very good example, was the dialogue in the training. People being able to ask questions and get answers. So I accept that side of it, but some of the training doesn't necessarily need that interactive session. So maybe that will help solve.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we have a couple of learning opportunities in the year. So they were on phishing, on password. So what I would say is they didn't necessarily have better uptake in terms of phishing. But I think the first one that we are looking at is code of conduct training, because obviously that's the most element of training. And we would like people to prepare themselves and having sure. And so we're looking at transferring that with learning as the first point for and having those checks about it. That's excellent.
I was going to say, it's very difficult, isn't it? How do you actually know people were present all the way through and that they got to pay it up for a walk or make the coffee, you know?
Well, there is a way of doing it, because my son went on a speed awareness course.
Can you do that online?
You can, but you've got to keep your cameras on.
Yeah.
Not just the one.
So we can learn some lessons from the speed awareness training.
Well, the suggestion of keeping cameras on has been made before. That we operate on isn't sufficient for.
All the cameras should be on.
Plus officers.
And the other question is, I mean, some of this training becomes, you go on the training, but throughout the year, you suddenly need to make reference to something, and code of conduct, and you want to check on something. So is it policy that you send out the training material? I think for the diversity training, I did ask for the material, but I never got it.
Yeah, I think it's probably too good having a bit of a refresh on that and tidy up a little bit. Because some of it might be
use dreams.
Yeah, but what we tried last year the first time, this is really difficult because having somewhere that everybody can access. We did try last year having a team group that people go in and get a documents out. And maybe we'll have to go back to that and really see what else we can do. But yeah, I think that was a good one. But then search for their emails about when they need people, so try and have one place that can access the information. I'll follow up with the diversity training and accessibility for the next year.
Before my time, there was training information kept in the members' room and had a copy.
Yeah.
So, that sort of resource, we should know the strikes, and I know we can't go back to video takes, but there's got to be somebody having this available in the menu. If somebody needs to come in and refresh themselves.
Yeah, I think what we might do is send the survey out again and then have a think about what are the options that suit everybody to try and get a capital cost.
Because we did have a lot of bookings when you looked at diary date set for the training sessions. We know they weren't all used, but I do remember, I think they were all at 4 o'clock.
What we'll do is we'll just have a look at the dates for January onwards. That will try and clearly done. See what we can do to provide some options.
The code of conduct, we ran it on 3 occasions and did it on a different time.
Meeting plans, we sent out the latest submission.
So there's been the training is mandatory and discretionary training. Yeah. So we talked about the code of conduct that being mandatory.
That's true, yeah.
What are remind us what the penalties are? Yeah.
That's a good question, isn't it? There's not really a penalty, is there, other than group leader or being told off, maybe being brought to, maybe being brought to the attention of staff, being made public that you'd be able to it's just a public awareness that you're not attending the training, so it is suggested. I think from a reputational point of view, it's better for you to do it than not. I think the Penn report was looking at member conduct. I think we didn't want to look at whether it should be something in mandatory training, but as things stand, there's no penalty as such.
Well, I'm just thinking, we have our attendance at meetings recorded. And that is, the performance that appears online, and our members our residents, voters can check on our performance for the year. Maybe that would be another thing that could actually be placed on that form.
Yeah.
Is it on there? Can't remember. Right. That training as well.
Yes.
Oh, I don't being down there.
That's not visible on the residents. Is it?
It's not shown publicly, but.
Oh, that's what I meant. That's what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
That's the
It is
issue.
shared publicly at standards. Yeah, like group leaders report on their attendance, and it is reported at standards. And this year we had 100% attendance for conduct training. So
Standards have shown away from the speed. So
yes, we wouldn't name names as such.
What about actually make it available to voters then? We want to make it up, we want to be sure that people are committed to being properly trained.
This is something you could go to discussion at this committee. On the agenda.
I mean, I'm sure that all group leaders from every party would be keen that all of their members participated in this. So I don't think it's an anti-democratic move to propose that these sessions, attendance or awareness of these sessions are recorded.
I think there's a feeling amongst some of the older councillors, older in terms of senior councillors, that they've been here for 40 years, and so why would they want to go on a training course for standards? But I think there's a message there that needs to be sent out. Standards do change.
You have to have a refresher of why they know your so it's your digital duty to remain up to date.
It helps with this ignorance and no excuse.
I think it's important.
Yes.
If you want to put something to the next agenda.
I think there's support. I'm minded that two or three councillors have suggested that. So, yes.
Cross party.
Okay, are you all done?
Yeah, great. So, final version of the report then on complement the work programme part to effectively talked about today.
I think the important question there is, are you happy with it? We don't want to contradict your own report.
I'm happy with that. But you must allow me to, or any new chair that comes in to have a different opinion, and having not been part of the process, be able to, maybe it's not politically correct to challenge it.
Oh, we put it at the vote session.
Yeah,
Well, you had 2 hands on, didn't you?
I did, but I still stand by, that I would like to see that process reviewed at some point. You said 3 months, that's a bit early, given how many council meetings we have. But I think in principle, and for the sake of democracy, we should continue to review whether the processes that we're running at full council are adequate and fit for purpose. Because there are some anomalies, and we spoke about this before, where you've got, talk about this now, and I'll just say it briefly, you've got the leader, who's also a cabinet member, and you ask the cabinet members questions, you get supplementary. So how do you ask the leader a question in a role as cabinet member, and if you do you get a supplementary? So there's some there's some anomalies there that could be ironed out, and the process could possibly be made more democratic, but that's a discussion for another day.
Next stage, yeah.
Exactly. I will be as mayor if I am.
Oh.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. So I think that takes us on to the remuneration panel. Items.
No, it wasn't. Had done.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Different.
Yeah, sounds very similar, but it's slightly different.
That's the end, we're done.
Okay, so this one is again a requirement for the committee to look at under the local government Wales National 2011. But this is different in that the report for head of government services, so it's in my role, providing review of staff accommodation and the resources made available to ensure that adequate resources provided for the responsibilities of the post. For this report, the committee has been asked to consider a comment upon the annual report. Those, the head of those electoral services manager, that the provision of staff accommodation and resources is adequate to discharge the statutory requirements. So that's in relation to the making democratic recommendation and scrutiny. And to ask that I recommend a review the provision of these resources, present any reports to committee should any changes be required. So this does provide a summary essentially of the functions and requirements of the statutory role, provision of staff, training provided to the staff, and the adequate conditions that are in. So I guess what I would like to just highlight as part of the report is there was changes to the team during the reporting period. So we had some of our officers secured promotions within the council, which is always a positive thing because we've got good officers who want to keep them. So within looking for development, we kept them within the council, but that created some vacancies. I think the last time the committee considered the report, we were just about to go out to permanent recruit some officers. So that was really successful. They were put in post. And then throughout the year, we've had 2 other changes then where members of staff moved on. As part of the budget assessment process, last year we were also asked to provide some support in terms of making proposals for reductions in budgets. So there was one grade 5 role reduced as part of those arrangements. At that period, we had one of those members of staff secure their promotion, so we were able to make that change without anybody redundancy. And then, as the committee is aware, we've talked about this before, the elections team also comes into my remit. So during that time, we looked at the structure of that team and repurposed some of the budget there. Is now a deputy democratic and electoral services manager that oversees both parts of the team. So that provides some additional leadership support during periods of absence. And as you can imagine, peak times during the year, budget setting process is one, busy prepping for elections. So it's just to make sure that those peak periods there's sufficient resource to manage across both areas. There was obviously some then induction training for our new members of staff, so making sure that they were supported in roles, policies, procedures, and having some cross training between members of the team when they were changing around their roles and responsibilities. We were also looking at prioritising some of our mandatory training during this time. So as officers, we also had mandatory training. We just wanted to make sure that that was where it needed to be at. So that's taken place during the year. We also secured specialist training for the roles. So we had one for the Local Government Association provide sessions of training on scrutiny. We also have the Association of Electoral Administrators to provide some support on electoral training, particularly looking at the Welsh legislation now, which is going increasingly different from the English legislation. There was always a focus on ongoing development, so there are training plans in place to reach individuals and youth. And then thinking about the future, satisfied that there is sufficient resource available to support the goals. Board meetings was an additional pressure this year. I know we did have some challenges around having lost some of our links to local community centres and venues. So I think we're still building on that at the moment, but that is getting better. And thinking about next year, the continuing impact of the Elections Act, some of those measures are still being introduced. We're still working our way through those. And then any further day-to-day changes to the plan, so what the things and the purpose going forward.
Thank you. So the committee is asked to consider and comment on the annual report. Are there any comments? Great. Anybody online to say? And to endorse the view of the head of law and standards, democratic electoral service managers, that the provision of staff, etc., is adequate. I have a question. I guess we're a couple of years now from COVID epidemic and working from home. As a head of service, can you comment on the challenges and benefits of working from home, how that affects your efficiency?
Yeah, so I think we've probably been in the office 2 years, because I think the beginning of 2022, we were planning the local elections, and that obviously required staff to be on site. There was lots of work for them. So I think we probably eased our way back to the office, perhaps a lot earlier than departments may have during that time. We also facilitate hybrid meetings, which is necessary for us to be on site, especially with the technologies that we're working, providing that support to members. So I would say all of our staff are in at least 2 days a week, possibly more. It's a really good balance, because there are days when it's out of the year and you need to be in duties, but then there's also necessity to go to quiet times so you can get your head down, get your minutes to papers. So I think it's a good balance overall. There's always been in the office now, so I think that was a bit of a change being implemented maybe in Parliament. So we've got lots of new members of staff. It is helpful to have people around you and learn from those discussions.
Right.
I think that's also a positive change for members. There's always somebody in the office, 5 people now. So yeah, challenges. Biggest challenges to the community for me is not even hybrid working or coming back to the office. It's all around just been to the pace of change with legislation, both in democratic fields and the election. Yes, we're in the same position as all the other authorities in Wales. There's really strong networks of activities that we work with on equivalents here in the local authorities. Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, but I would certainly say is corporate support, those legislative changes that we've got support for the community.
Okay. So it says here we are to ask the democratic electoral service managers to keep under review the provision of staff. So I'm sure you can do that to the report back. And then major significant changes. Now that takes us on to the next item, which is the draft independent report panel IRP report and consultation.
Me again, sorry. So this is the draft report of the Independent Commission of Wales. So this is their proposals on pay, expenses and benefits for elected members. This just it's for councils, it's still for our community councils, private reviews and national parks. So the draft annual report is out for consultation. So in part, it's information only updates, but there are also 6 consultation questions. In previous years, we have sort of come to a consensus within the committee on the feedback they're going to provide in those questions. We'll go through this at the end. The consultation period ends on the 8th of December. And over and above the questions themselves, the IRP will accept additional comments if we should make those 2. The final determinations and annual report be shared by the end of February next year. That report will then come back to this committee We're also for the council, usually is considered a fine. So just key things to note is that the panel are keen to ensure that the levels of remuneration are fair and reasonable. They've agreed to align levels of remuneration for members and their organisations within the context of average Welsh earnings. So they look at annual survey of hours and earnings within Wales. Those statistics which are published by the National Statistics Office in Wales. Key changes for these are set out towards the end of the report. So determination 1, the basic level of salary for elected members of municipal councils was set at 18,666. They've also set a salary for the leader of the largest council, which is Group A, to be £69,998. All of the payments then be decided in reference to that. Table 1. Determination 3 is the salary of the chair of joint and scrutiny committees would be 9,333. The vice chair would be 4,667. They also set out in table 2 basically the members for national park authorities, fire and rescue authorities, which has been increased. Determination 5 is around co-opted member payments. So the panel is proposing that there is more local flexibility for the relevant officer to decide when appropriate to apply day or half day rates, or to use hourly rates where it's sensible to aggregate. Those full and half day rates remain unchanged from 2023 to 2024. There is a change in the stipulation of hourly rates adapted. There's also a change in determination 6 for members of the community and town councils, so our community councillors. So they'll be paid £3 per week, which is £156 a year towards extra household expenses. So, like working from home, heating, lighting, power and water. And there's also an additional £52 a year to those members for the cost of office consumables, or those members can apply for full reimbursement of the cost of those consumables. Determination 7 is around compensation for financial loss, which is an optional payment. This was not increased last year. And the new proposed figures for 2024 proposed is £119.62 for a full day, £59.81 for a half day. And the final determination is that the panel proposes from September next year, the returns can only show the total amounts paid in respect of mandatory payments mentioned above. The contribution to working from home and consumables allowance and travel fees would be paid. So that brings them in line with the reporting by the workers. So that is a summary of the report, the determination. I don't know if you want to go through the questions one by one, Chair, and if you would like to back these questions into it all.
Yes, please.
Because the questions on here are on the Welsh.
Yeah, it's scroll down to the end. It's not. Yeah, it's a long way down.
Which page is that on?
It's the
So I just wrote additional documentation on here, and it says item 7. And that's written like English, and then we'll go into it. It's in Welsh.
If you scroll,
Oh, I see. I got
it's at the
right.
end.
I didn't get that. I was like, okay.
Oh no, I've got it here. Page starts around page. Well, question 3 is on page 8.
Okay.
I'd like to ask us questions related to the pay of our officers, because clearly the panel have considered the average area earnings
Yes.
when setting the or proposing the rates of councillors. Excuse me, Chair. I'm wondering if what about the spinal column points in which officers' wages would be related to? Because clearly in Wales this is an issue, isn't it? We have some very deprived areas. Some of the councils are less financially healthy than others. Their average citizens' average earnings would be lower in some areas than others. And I'm just wondering, and also, you know, it just struck me here, we've got the three councils there which are paid a slightly higher rate, or the recommendation is for slightly higher rate. What makes them the principal councils? Why those three? Why those three in band A or band 1?
Size, yeah, I think it's based on size.
They're just sort of size of the population, not necessarily turnover of resources or anything like that.
A bigger council with a bigger population will probably have to get it because it'll get.
Yeah, so, yeah. Or, yeah, but we know that the council tax doesn't actually. Council tax is weird, isn't it? And I thought that council was getting my head around this. We know council tax only contributes to less than a quarter of what the council needs to run itself. So theoretically, every extra resident moving in, I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here, aren't I, for a growing city? But every time you have a new resident into the area, they're actually costing us money.
Yeah. And but also the Welsh
Well, they're costing Welsh government money, providing Welsh government pick up the bill entirely.
I mean, all councils get a Welsh government settlement each year, and that's proportionate. Yeah, yeah, the bigger councils will get bigger settlement.
Although we've done quite well on settlements, haven't we?
So what is your action?
Well, I suppose just are these things considered with the average pay of the area, you know, because some areas the pay of the average income of their citizens will be lower than other areas of Wales. But it doesn't seem likely here from what we've seen of these results, which we've been asked to recommend, that there is necessarily that tie-in. I realise that this is not, this is just really for noting this report, isn't it? We don't vote on it.
It's something you can put in the consultation.
But maybe it'd be quite interesting to feed that observation back. You know, we have to be aware that Wales is proportionately poorer as a country, that wages are lower here, and this is something which the panel are aware, you know, are they mindful of this, or does it actually come into their considerations?
Is there a cross-check with what gets paid in England, for example?
I don't believe so. I think this is just based on.
It is very much into
into a local area they have to do.
yeah.
It's information about the methodology and but I believe it takes Wales.
So, Ian, could you give us the timeline then for this? You said there's a consultation period. So what are the next steps for this report through to implementation?
So this has been got to be concluded by right. But also referred to message minutes and the impact on the
Thoughts?
Chair, can I just come back on this finance issue? It's a lot more complicated, I'm afraid. This would need to relieve. There used to be a very rigid formula for finance from the chief executive on the size of the population, running up through the officer grades, etc., etc. And off that span, members allow the system of this sort of thing. But that has sort of gone away. This independent committee is now trying to make some sort of sense. As well as a very complicated setup. Because it's a pity Robert couldn't have joined us this morning. I'm sure that there would be far more sense of finance than the officers. No disrespect to them, you know, they're asking all officers the right question. So we would need further guidance on the way that the independent committee came to its decisions that we could comment on from the scant information we had this morning. And this is something I don't even know. It probably is for this decision, for this committee, but it's a much wider ranging topic than we've been given this morning. I don't know how really good to deal with it.
I think, you know, several members could comment on it and say, the remuneration package reason the changes to this calculation was that it's found that member remuneration, keeping up with inflation, but it was lagging way behind, so it changed it to get to the.
Yeah, not beating inflation, wasn't it? That's the average wage share.
Yeah, so linking it to average earnings in Wales was felt to be the appropriate way to keep up.
There's some information and methodologies. So it's got data on average UK and Wales earnings, 50,000 earnings, UPIH and CPI inflation rates, benchmarks, including the council remuneration Scotland, research on council workload, use attitudes to remuneration and diversity, with some Senate build the government, data collected on the take-up of remuneration and benefits packages by councillors, data on local authority finances, and also all that data and evidence on the website. So if you did want to go and look through.
If we went down the pro rata, we'd probably suggest that councillors in Cardiff should get double the rate on councillors in Powys, for instance.
Well, that wouldn't be right, would it? Because we've still got,
All the work that you have to do anyway.
you've still got all the yes, you've got standard work. But also we've still got to be mindful, we need to encourage people to take up the democratic opportunities provided by becoming a councillor.
Yeah, that's why they keep it.
Yeah. We shouldn't be putting people off.
I suggest best of the
I'm minded to agree with you.
You can't change this in any way, and do we want to?
Exactly. So this whole process has to be concluded by.
So the 8th of December is the closing date for application, and the final report will be available by the end of February next year. The final report will come back usually this committee, but that will be information and we will be able to just.
So anybody who wants to input on the 8th of December, do so. As a committee. In the
And this will come back to us again next year.
which time presumably.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to do really detailed research onto the way this thing is formulated, fine, and they can come back and so.
If you want to look at the 6 questions, just so you know.
Yeah, I've got them down.
Comments, make sure you don't want to be here. For example, the encouraging sustainable travel.
And I'm just done.
So they can be confident on that one.
I'm your vodka in your evening meetings. Yeah, sorry.
I think that the other sort of elegant version of it, I think it's a good point, making sure that members are aware of their entitlements. I know that community council members are often not aware of that. I think that's a bigger issue.
It's slightly open for abuse of councils, isn't it, where they could pay their share up to £1,500 a year as was. And that money was for the larger councils, ideally, with the extra responsibilities exist, but it's done on a voting system, I believe, so a council can vote, a community council can vote their chair to have the full whack. Excellent measures are for that, but
Well, look at the details.
Yeah, I mean, not all councils have the same number of community councils, do they? So it would seem for the complex.
indeed.
Yeah. These on these questions, I'm not on the right page here, but they seem to be more about finding out about our awareness of things or our situations, rather than asking for considerations of their considerations. Sorry. But we have discussed the things like reimbursement for carers' responsibility and this sort of thing in the past. And I think we were all agreed at that time it was important that nobody considering should becoming a councillor should be unaware of those things, which may make a considerable difference to the commitment that they could make and a decision about applying for a role.
Okay. Any other points? Can we move on to the next item, which is the forward work programme?
There's a bit, there's a few things that like to be there element. Was the risk side of it, so that will be a report to there. That would also a bit of a plan changes. So there's something that we
Discussed this last time, and if it's going to be an ongoing process, it would be good to get a timeline,
Yeah,
latest timeline of the stages. It's
Yeah.
too big a job to do.
it's a very big job. Yeah. It takes time to review it as well to see whether or not quite in line with model and where we want to put our own local variations in as well.
Good. And in that case, the date of the next meeting, 22nd of February, o'clock.
Gosh,
Room to be determined.
gosh. Yes. Can I suggest you?
If you don't wait,
When we have to change it, if we put we would normally meet in the other room, don't
when
we?
you come into sign in.
Yeah.
At reception, there's the notice board.
Was it on there?
Yeah.
I wasn't, I don't
I checked myself.
I wasn't expecting it to be changed.
Really invite. It's nice to bring.
Room to be on the.
Thank you for that.
Okay, training on food hygiene was probably very, very interesting. We should have stayed there.
Really saying.
Yes, and the trainer is one of your officers in that post. He's very interesting as well. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've concluded. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred.